So I thought I'd make a video on this, on some topics that were kind of going through my mind. I think it's worth looking into. Um, but I was thinking, when I was a little kid, when I was very young, even a kid, I was probably about, I think I was about 9 to 10 years old when, was it after my dad's suicide? It could have happened after my dad's suicide. I don't think it was. I think it was like, if it was right after. And we only had it for like 6 months, or I want to say it was before. But my mother bought a Ozarka water tank so that we would have hot water, and we would have hot water and cold water, and fresh, clean water to drink. And I was thinking, we only had that that water machine probably for like less than a year. I would say maybe 8 months before my mother threw it away. And it took my mother like, I'd say after maybe about 4 months or 3 months, my mother told me that she goes, oye, oye, ¿qué te está pasando? Como algo me está pasando en el cuero. And she said, I think something's happening to my skin. And she said that she thought it was the water. She thought it was something in the water, that there was a chemical, or there was a machine or something like that. But she said that she was feeling sick or something like that. And I thought to myself, she goes, algo está pasando, como algo me somos cuero, algo me está pasando, algo. But she was very expressive about it, and she's never been expressive about anything like that. When my mother expressed something like that, she didn't just express, she expressed enough concern for me to think that, is there something in this water? We drank it, and she said that she thought it was maybe the company, or like Ozarka. So she said that she couldn't drink the water, there was something wrong, or she said she thought it was the water or the machine. And she said that something was like, she was getting either hives or something was happening to her skin or something. She said she didn't feel good, like, algo me está pasando, no, ¿qué está pasando? So you sure? It's like, yeah. And I said, algo te pasa? No. And I don't know if I did tell her that it tasted kind of funny. I don't know if I did tell her, and I thought, well, wait, I don't know if it was cold, or I don't know, maybe it does kind of taste funny, I don't know. And I was thinking that it was just because it was really cold water, or maybe the tubes of the plastic could cause some sort of some sort of taste, like a plastic taste or something. But there really isn't. And I thought, at least at that age, I felt like I was old enough to realize that the mechanics to something like that probably doesn't take a whole lot of mechanics to figure something that out, and there's probably not a lot of access of chemicals that could get into the tubes that feeds the machine out water out of the machine, so that you can, there's the plastic, and there's probably not too many components. And it was Ozarka, and if anything, they came in a truck and they dropped off the gallons of water. So it was very unlikely, because it's usually very secure. They put the secure caps on there. It's probably not very likely. But I do recall my mother saying that, and I thought, is it possible that somebody was poisoning my mother? And because if I got poisoned and my brother was getting raped, who's to say that my mother didn't go to work and somebody poisoned her food, or she went to a restaurant, or she went to some place that someone suggested? Like, for an example, when Diana got my mother's head shaved, and she sent someone, and that lady was very nasty. That lady it could have been someone else, and you could set something like that up and then have that person say, why don't you go eat at that restaurant? There's a great discount, they're feeding you really well. And you go there, and that person's going to poison you. They're going to throw a little bit of shit in there. They're going to throw some toilet gunk in there, throw some chlorine, you won't taste it. or some cyanide, fuck you up just enough. It's not going to kill you, but you're going to get very sick, or you break out with something. They'll start with small doses, because they don't want to get caught, and it's to discipline you. And so I was thinking to myself, if that is the case of what happened, could have, because 10 homosexual rapes, you are going to have a tremendous amount of people against you. And plus the Michael Jackson, it's very likely that they're not going to be able to catch everything. And you have a first grade education, you're having your child abducted, and it's very likely that something like that could have happened. So in my ideas of it, I would look into it. I'm sure somebody already has. But it does raise a lot of suspicion to think to myself that, there are just too many situations where my mother could have been poisoned because it's more convenient for them. And I'm sure it wasn't the first time. I believe that my sister died because she was poisoned. That's what I think. It's not to say, maybe my mother took a bunch of Tylenol before that. Maybe she did it to herself. Maybe that's not to say that isn't out of the question. I feel very confident. I was having flashbacks, and I was like 90% sure, I was like 85% sure of this. I remember my dad coming in with my mother after the supposedly overdose, and my dad kind of just looked over at me. I was about 3 years old. I was 2 or 3 years old. I was very young. It was like a year before the whole raping situation of my uncles, and I was like 4.5. I was like 3 years old. I don't even think I was 4 years. I was like 2 to 3 years old. And for some reason, I don't know if somebody was babysitting me, or I don't remember going to a hospital. I don't remember being picked up. I just remember my mom and dad walking through the door, and I was in the living room just waiting for my mother to show up, and she showed up, and she looked like she was walking in shame. Like she had like sort of kind of carry herself in a shameful, like, kind of like a vibe, kind of walking along with my dad. And my dad she was behind my dad, like he was carrying her, like in life. And my dad was walking, and he goes, and I want to say he looked at me because he was that kind of a character. He looks at me and kind of talks to me like an adult, but he looks at me and goes, yeah, she had to go to Green Oaks. Yeah, and so, given the idea that sort of character sort of plays, I'm carrying, and I just got to take care of the situation. He probably feels bad, but he knows he wants a family, and it's very mutual. And I remember my mother's having her sort of shame look, and she was wearing that same outfit where I see her with the watch and this sort of Grandy's maid looking, you take care of the rich kind of outfit. And so that's why it brings me more to the conclusion that she actually did. But there's no way to prove it. I remember clear. My dad said that. I know it's a haunting nightmare of memories of things that I can remember for some reason. In detail, things that I see for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, I thought it was important for me to say something because there was too much tragedy, but I was thinking it was worth a conversation. I know my mom used to say that, and I would have been placed under investigation, but it's a tragedy. I don't think that they would have probably poisoned Frankie, less likely. I think the only reason less likely they would have done it to him because Frankie was so broken down as a child that having something like that happen to you is horrific. It dissembles the brain in that a kid in ways that you can't even imagine. I can't, because I'd walked into Frankie's room a couple of times and I'd see his eyes red. And he never cried, expressed. But I knew that it could have been just because of stress. I don't, because he didn't really express stress in the way that other people did. The stress was not expressed. It was like, well, this is the way of life is, and this is where I feel comfortable, and this is where I feel safe, and this is what I'm supposed to say to stay safe. And so that's what my opinion is on that, because they would have went after me, because if they always go after, a lot of the times, obviously, if they know the weak is already done with, they'll go after the strong one, because they know that if that one is the one that's going around like I was in my house, and sort of the carrying of the early stages of it, they know that this one is the problem that's going to rat out our leader Michael Jackson and ruin the gay community connection we have. You got to keep this going for the leader, and that's the mentality that they have. So the attachment of emotion, it's crazy, but it's too late now, and they did successfully. There's no way, I know those teachers didn't want to say anything. Those teachers did not want to say a damn thing, and they were all covering it up in teams. I remember there was huge wars in that school, what was going on between the teachers. That was really awful, because the gays wanted to get away with what they were doing, and then the straight teachers, the women, because majority were all women, but like 2 male teachers, if that, went up to higher rankings, and they didn't. They were the principal, and they had to go to like the superintendents, and they had to go to up above the highest levels because they were just controlling everything. And the biggest gays, homosexuals, then let the homosexual teachers then pick on the other teachers and taunt them to see what they can get away with. And they do it all the time. I got to see a lot of drama between teachers when I was a kid. And the reason was because I always used to stay after school for like I had to stay an hour every day after school for the last 6 months of 4th grade, and all I ever saw was the aftermath of the drama because there's no students, and I used to always watch the drama and how they talk to each other and all kind. I used to see a lot of shit, a lot of things that was outside of sort of school, the dramas between teachers. But I thought it was important for me to talk about that and say about what was going on, because some of this behavior that I saw Frankie go through is so horrific that when the crying stops and it's just like, well, I gotta, this is what I do, this is just what I do, this is what I do, and then I'm gonna be okay, but it doesn't hurt anymore. Well, and I think that transcends to staying in your room and the nightmares of that. So I think that it's hard for me to, because nobody gives a shit. They successfully did it. Nobody gave a shit. They threw their chump money. I couldn't express the expression more of my interest of trying to investigate my own shit. With my dad and mom eager to protect the money, my dad, I got into a minor fight with this guy in my mom's car. There was no reason, and the fact that Robert Palomo and the fact that Sarah, Cooper and Michael Palomo, the way Nan did, it was disgusting beyond anything, because it's just about controlling, getting away. And I would have told, you don't understand how the connection with Frankie, would have been fighting the war with him. I would have been like right there in this situation, dealing with what's going on head on against why am I gonna, and I feel like I had to almost like turn the tables on him and figure out what the fuck Sarah's gonna do and what Ken Cooper's gonna do. And then you don't understand how perpetrating or how freeloading these motherfuckers are, because if they're not gonna get it, and I don't even know that I have it, and they're gonna take it away, whatever it is, and I make sure that you're not gonna get it, and that's what the whole situation was, is take the information, manipulate it, but it's to abuse the shit out of your brain, abuse the shit out of you and take advantage, very predatorial, and they know how to get them to feel sorry. See, It's so horrific because there's no justice and nobody gives a shit. It's just, you want to feel sorry for the white boy. You want to feel sorry for the fucking pig because he's a transgender and he's dickless and he's just trying to be a guy and feel sorry for him. Then Frankie just did 15 fucking years and 11 fully fucking grown fucking men fucking him. And you want to feel sorry for a police officer and a fucking old bitch that now let a child get his ass raped and then make excuses of it later. I'm telling you, that was all with the intention of selfish and greed and self-absorbed, so trained and disgusting of their relationship and what that is. And they're going to keep making excuses, and they did. I was going to jail, over $50,000 I was getting. Sorry, I'm not trying to curse. I know there's crucifix. Lord forgive me. But the idea is that there's nothing that can be done. They pile this up. Their kids don't have any fucking problems. They don't have any problems. What's happening to my mother and my immediate family is something to be fixed. And a lot of stuff that's going on that's really bad, horrifically. We're not getting anything while we're alive. This isn't Cece's Pizza. This is not Mr. Gaddy's at Funtime Pizza. Here, go to the mall with a fucking credit card and go buy a bunch of clothes. You don't get to experience your youth. And at all. And they're just feeling sorry for Kenneth at the radio station. He was doing his own investigation and he needs his own rewards. I mean, it's horrific because they're smart enough that they're going to keep layering. Oh, it's because Hector had a big mouth and he kept... No, that's not the truth. Because I didn't have anybody come over to my house and too many people to talk to. Just a few people at my job sites. But it's sad because I know something bad really happened to Frankie and that's it. That's no more, and they got the last laugh. They did, the more older we get, the next year, Michael could show up dead, from all the drugs. Eric could show up dead, all the drugs, stroke, then their dad dies. Let's put that, or their mother dies. In a year, it could be me, massive stroke, brain aneurysm, it's an aneurysm that kills me. Something happens, I don't know, but the idea that, they had a good time, it's bothersome because they didn't even know, they're all gay and they're all DJs, and guess what, the neighbor has a dead little girl, that's my sister, and they're partying and shitting in my house. Ivan used to see that shit all the time. All the time. And it was Michael's house. Nobody could ever tell you that it was very intentional to break the situation down to my house, and then, they could tell that there were Richard Murphy would come over and kind of scuffle around like yeah, the house has already been broken in. Like I get to use some of this because you come to my house a lot of time, which is fine. I understand that, but who knows about whoever knew about embezzling money and all these other situations, but all that house around, all that experiences and not allowed to get a girlfriend and being broken, and if I fight, then problems going to start happening, and if they're the youngest, and all those experiences get lost. If Frankie didn't get it, but it's 1,000 records right over there, but it's to feel sorry for me when they try to go to jail for a prison for a year and then say, oh, okay, I changed my life. Oh, because the truth is, life will end. Life will end. And you have rappers and you have MCs that have done horrific things to people that never got caught and never talk about. Let mothers having miscarriages and it's Ice Cube, you never hear about it. It was her friend's aunt, and he literally ditched her ass with the laughter and committed suicide, and he laughed about it, and you never heard. I'm not saying that did happen to that person, or happened to Dr. Dre, or 50 Cent, shot and killed somebody. Snoop Dogg was in a car that killed 2 teenagers, and he was in a car with 3 other guys, and he got let off for murder. You have these celebrities, and you have the situation, and everyone's in a frenzy, all fighting over it, and they just kill. and they know how to get away with it. And it's the whites, it's the Asians, it's all sorts of people all over the place. But it's difficult when you live your life so well with, taxes and having honesty, money, good morality, and, death of a little girl, not even money, but, trying to make a life better, and scumbags like that. I'll never get that life again. Your precious youth is so precious, and they got to live that. I didn't. It was very crumbs for me. Had I been in charge, having money like that, the only reason, like Eric Quinteros, one of the people that did influence me, he used to carry a orange backpack with like less than 10 records. He had, I don't even say like not even close to 10, I'm gonna say he had like 7 records. And he would it was like, it made him look poor as shit. He lived in an expensive house, excuse my words, but he lived in an expensive house. He had these nice things, but he only had like 7 records, and he just had a dream, and he would show up. And it made me feel comfortable, because I was like, man, I don't have that many records, I don't have much stuff at all. And Michael and Chris would always talk about how much money they had. He's driving a $25,000 car and his, $30,000 car on his 21st birthday. Has all this equipment and records and turntable, and it was very difficult, because nobody really understood. It was all about not letting me have, because they knew that the house wouldn't be theirs anymore. But, there's differences of how you want to look at it. I was at their house all the time, but, they're smarter in the beginning. It sucks, because, you think about, what Frankie went through to retain that house. Who cares now? Remember for the forgiveness story? It's a very entangling situation.